All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 21st, 2024 meeting of the Ascension Parish Council. We'll call to order. And I'm asking Mr. Joseph, please lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Bow our head. Dear Lord, bless this great country, bless this great state, bless this great parish, and bless all the members on this board to make the right decision for this parish. And also bless all the Armed Forces Service members who give us the right and the freedom we have today. Dear Lord, bless all. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. On to item number 2, roll call. Ms. Secretary, we are missing Mr. Robert, Mr. Turner, and Mr. Mason tonight. All the other members are present. For Chair's edition, in December, we will only have one council meeting. We announced this at the last council meeting. So we're going to move it to December 12th, which is the Thursday that would be in between our normal 2 meetings. But in December, we will have one council meeting here at the Gonzales location on Thursday, December 12th at 6 p.m. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Next week, I don't believe we'll see each other before then. Item number 4, the public comment sign-in period. If anyone would like to speak on any of our agenda items, please come see Ms. McKee over here. She has the cards. Fill it out. When we get to that agenda item, you have 3 minutes at the podium to speak. And item number 5, the parish president's report. Mr. President.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Council. I think Chase kind of led into it already, so it was a nice segue, but I want to wish all of you and our staff and our residents a safe and happy Thanksgiving next week. Our offices will be open on Monday and Tuesday of next week, but all parish government offices will be closed on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in observance of Thanksgiving. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. On to item number 6, the consent agenda. Ms. McKee.
Adoption of October 17, 24 regular council meeting minutes. Adoption of November 7, 24 regular council meeting minutes. Approval of renewal of the intergovernmental agreement between Ascension Parish government and Ricky Babin, 23rd Judicial District Attorney, for the continued implementation of the drug intervention program for adult offenders created by the district attorney. Funds provided shall not exceed $205,000. Approval to apply for the fiscal year 24-25 Community Water Enrichment Fund program, and to authorize President Clint Quintmall to sign and execute all documents relating to the application and/or Chief Financial Officer Treasurer Dawn Caballero for financial documents. Approval to apply for fiscal year 24-25 Local Government Assistance Program, and to authorize Parish President Clint Quintmall to sign and execute all documents relating to the application and/or Chief Financial Officer Treasurer Dawn Caballero for financial documents. Approval of agreement with the Picard Group for professional services related to the legislative branch of state government for $10,000 monthly for federal services and $7,500 monthly for state services for a term of 1 year beginning January 1st, 25 and ending December 31st, 25. The total not to exceed amount is $250,000 for federal and state services, printing, travel, events, and miscellaneous costs. Approval of the professional selection committee's recommendation to select Falk and Winkler for the RFP Independent Certified Public Accountant services, and to enter into a contract for these services. Approval of amendment number 3 to the professional services contract with DRC Emergency Services for emergency debris removal and related services, to add the city of Donaldsonville as an appearer due to the omission of the city of Donaldsonville as a party to the contract, although included in the bid. Approval of amendment number 1 to the professional services contract with Tetra Tech for emergency debris monitoring, to add the city of Donaldsonville as an appearer due to the omission of the city of Donaldsonville as a party to the contract, although they were included in the bid. Approval of amendment number 2 to the master services contract with A to Z Consulting for the master plan Roger J. Cluot Park, to extend the contract through December 31st, 25. This amendment only extends the term of the contract, and does not affect the original contract price. Approval of amendment number 1 to the master services contract with A to Z Consulting for the master plan Richard Brown Park, to extend the contract term through December 31st, 25. This amendment only extends the term of the contract and does not affect the original contract price. Approval of renewal of the cooperative endeavor agreement between Ascension Parish government and Lifehouse. Lifehouse will provide labor personnel to the parish in various operations, and in exchange, the parish will provide employment opportunities and pay the laborers provided by Lifehouse. This cooperative endeavor agreement has a total not to exceed amount of $150,000 and shall terminate on December 31st, 25. Approval of amendment number 2 to the master contract for professional services for professional engineering support services with Parish Engineering for the electrical design at the Darrow Community Center to extend the contract term through December 31st, 25. This amendment only extends the term and does not affect the original contract price. Approval of amendment number 3 to the master contract for professional engineering support services with Quality Engineering and Surveying for the Ascension Parish Courthouse East Green Infrastructure Improvements Project to extend the contract term through June 30th, 25. This amendment only extends the contract term and does not affect the contract price. Approval of amendment number 1 to the master contract professional services with Gulf South Engineering and Testing for geotechnical assistant to extend the contract term through March 31st, 25, retroactive to October 29th, 24, and to include an additional amount of $50,000 for a new not-to-exceed contract amount of $350,000. Approval of renewal of the master contract services contract with Cody Edwards Trucking for dump trucks with drivers on an as-needed basis to assist with hauling hot asphalt to various locations within the parish at a rate of $115 per hour. Total budget amount of $175,000 to be shared between 3 providers. Approval of renewal of the master services contract with JFK Trucking for dump trucks with drivers on an as-needed basis to assist with hauling hot asphalt to various locations within the parish at a rate of $115 per hour. Total budget amount of $175,000 to be shared between 3 providers. Approval of renewal of the master services contract with Seek Ye First Enterprises for dump trucks with drivers on an as-needed basis to assist with hauling hot asphalt to various locations with the parish at a rate of $110 per hour. Total budget amount of $175,000 to be shared between 3 providers. Approval of amendment number 1 to the master contract for professional services for professional engineering support services with Fort and Tablada for bridge load ratings of parish-owned bridges to extend the contract through April 30th, 25. This amendment only extends the contract term and does not affect the contract price. Approval of amendment number 2 to the master services contract with Delcon for electrical maintenance repairs to add another $150,000 for a not to exceed amount of $300,000 due to extension of contract through October 25 and large expenses for Arc West electrical upgrades. Approval of amendment number 1 to the master services contract with Delcon for plumbing maintenance and repairs to add another $50,000 for a not to exceed amount of $200,000 due to large expenses taking the bulk of funding for Arc West plumbing replacement and large expenses for Council on Aging water leak repair. Approval to enter into contract with Gitro General Contractors for the trademark partition wall replacement, LMR Dixon Expo Center, total contract amount not to exceed $70,720. Approval of amendment number 9 to the professional services contract with McKimmon Creed to extend the term to December 31st, 24, retroactive to August 3rd, 24. The amendment only extends the term of the contract and does not affect the contract price. Approval of change order number 1, ICE Sales and Service for the remove and replace the controls for the Muffin Monster Sewer System Project 240106, to add 90 construction days to project duration time due to inclement weather and electrical components delivery delays beyond the control of the contractor. There is no change to the original contract price of $167,500. Approval of amendment number 2 to the master contract for professional services for professional engineering support services with Parish Engineering for the electrical design of the Muffin Monster to extend the contract through March 31st, 25. This amendment only extends the contract term and does not affect the contract price. Approval to enter into a contract with Premier Service Team for the Parish Utilities of Ascension Water Treatment Plant Roof Replacement Project number UTIL 240018 for removal of the existing roof, gutters, and attachments, and to encase the existing metal roof and installation of a gutter system and standing seam roof panels. Total contract amount not to exceed $85,480.
Thank you, Ms. McKee. At this time, does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent agenda for further discussion? All right, Chair, entertain a motion to approve. Have a motion by Mr. Cullen and a second by Mr. Vornado. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Item number 7, general business, approval of amendment number 2 with CSRS LLC to increase the contract amount by $250,000 for a new total not to exceed amount of $1,290,145 due to increased analysis and coordination required between staff and applicants, as well as anticipated reviews of submittals for the new off-site drainage analysis ordinance. This amendment also modifies Exhibit B, schedule of rates and charges, to include 2 additional staff classifications. The contract amount is also increased by $13,500 to compensate for the additional work required under Amendment Number 1 to Task Order Number 1. The new total not to exceed amount for this contract is $1,303,645.
Chair.
Yeah, we got a question by Mr. Robert.
No question. I just wanted to, since you weren't at the meeting at the end of it last time, I didn't get to apologize to you for reading that wrong and having to make you
I
come up here.
appreciate that.
So, I'll make a motion on that.
Okay.
Okay. And Mr. Vornado has a question.
So the $250,000, what happens if, is this, it's like a hard amount that they need, or is this just an estimate? What happens to
This
the money if
was-
they don't use it?
It was well, if
We
they
just-
don't use it, it doesn't get used. I mean, basically, they had, when I started this about a month and a half ago, they had about 6 months left on the contract because their contract expires in April of next year, and you have to go through the selection process again for it. Due to the increased cost of the reviews that we were doing, plus the off-site drainage assessment and all of that, I made estimates as to what I anticipated based on their past months priors after reviewing all of the invoices, and that's what I thought was necessary to get them through the end of their term of their contract next year.
And do we anticipate the administration, I guess this is for the administration, do we anticipate once we start bringing on some of this regional retention or detention, that some of these costs may decrease for the studies potentially down the line? And the permit process for, any kind of development kind of decreasing? Because right now they're saying it's, 6 months roughly, I think, the review process, give or take?
Anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on the complexity of the project and the back and forth.
Is that something we can expect to see, folks, in the building world for that to
So
decrease?
in 2025, and I've spoken to many of you about this, we're in the process, the administration, of getting all the paperwork and packets together. We'll be going over the Unified Land Development Code to make changes in 2025, to look and see where we can adjust items like the field ordinance that may have been adopted without necessary changes, see how that's affecting business. Residential loopholes, spoken to many of you all about those, and I want to close those. So 2025 is a good year, I think, to start going over that. So we're going to develop our initiatives, then we're going to get with y'all and talk about your concerns and how and what parts of the code that y'all want to look at. And then we'll proceed into 2025, starting off the year with looking at what changes we need to make in development code to clean a lot of that stuff up. So that's going to save time and money. I think once we start looking at which ones are maybe a little too much, which ones are just right, and which ones maybe need to be tightened up. And so, a lot of the CSRs are working on a lot of different projects and a lot of things we're doing now. And so we need to analyze those costs. You're 100% correct, but that's something we're going to correct together. It's not something that we're just going to do with the administration by itself. We're going to do that with y'all in 2025.
Yeah, I think that's kind of best for folks in construction and homeowners and whatnot. If we're doing the regional retention, I think it's best of both worlds for the individuals and folks that are in that business, construction business. So that's all I have. Thank you. Second motion.
I do have a motion by Mr. Robert. I think I had a second by Ms. Alonso first. Any more questions for Mr. Poche? Hearing none, so moved. Thank you, Mr. Eric. 7B, approval to amend Exhibit A of the resolution and update on projects regarding spending on American Rescue Plan, ARPA funds to amend Southwood Park to match lowest bid, Oak Grove to match playground costs, South Louisiana Fairgrounds to match lowest bid, and increase courthouse landscaping to utilize remaining funds. I'm gonna ask Mr. Compton if you give us a little overview of this, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So the chart that's in your packet lays out the last amendment that this body made, and then this proposed amendment. The cells that are in blue identify those values that changed from the last time that you looked at this chart. The parish allocated $14,591,343 of American Rescue Plan dollars to very specific projects that has to come via resolution from this body, and it has to be spent by the end of this year. The next 3 items, or 2 items that you're going to be hopefully approving, are to get those projects, the bids approved and the contracts started so we can get them approved by the end of this year. And these amendments basically are because the price for Southwood came in under budget. The playground at Oak Grove came in under budget. The South Louisiana Fairgrounds came in over budget, so we moved that money there. And then we still had a small amount, I think it was $35,000. So we moved that to the courthouse project that came in over budget. So that's what we're doing.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Robert, second by Mr. Arsenault. Any objection? Hearing none? So moved. Thank you, Ms. Compton. Oh, look, you can stay right there. Item 7C, approval of lowest responsive bid in the amount of $749,434 and to enter into contract negotiations with Stickland and Porter Construction for the Southwood Park Improvement Project. Motion by Mr. Arsenault, a second by Mr. Hillensbeck. Any questions, any objection? Hearing none, so moved. 7D, approval of lowest responsive bid in the amount of $2,193,000 and approval to enter into contract negotiations with Promethean General Contractors LLC for South Louisiana Fairground Park Improvements Project. Motion by Mr. Joseph, a second by Mr. Hillensbeck. Any questions, any objection? Got a question for Mr. Joseph.
Yes. Ricky, what time frame is this possibly will start?
I would say I am hopeful that if we get the contract signed in the next few weeks, that they would be able to start ordering materials, and we would hopefully break ground in the first quarter of next year. I'm not sure of the construction timeline for this, but I would guess it's probably 8 to 12 months. So, you know.
Okay. All right.
180 days for South Louisiana? There you go, 180 days. That's
Oh, great.
A lot better.
In time for football.
That's right.
All right. Thanks. That's all.
All right. Oh, we did have a motion in a second, right, Ms. McKee? Yeah. All right, any objection? Hearing none, so moved. 7E, approval of the lowest responsive bid in the amount of $1,974,000 and approval to enter into contract negotiations with Geo Services Incorporated for the Prairieville Park Improvements Project. Have a motion by Mr. Arsenault, a second by Mr. Hillensbeck. Any questions, any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Thank you there, Mr. Compton. All right, introduction of ordinances. 8A, public hearing for introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to create a road infrastructure district designated as Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District number IDD-2024-01, Bell Mason, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Developmental Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of final plat procedure, Infrastructure Development District. Have a motion to open public hearing. A second, motion by Mr. P.T., a second by Mr. Vornado. Motion to close by Mr. Vornado, and a second by Mr. Arsenault. And, let me see, Cinnamon, do I have to read it again?
Yes.
I gotta read it, okay.
So on these, I know everybody's confused because they're introductions, but we're required to do 2 public hearings, one at introduction and one at adoption on the road infrastructure districts.
Okay,
That's why it's listed that way.
gotcha. Okay. 8B, introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to create road infrastructure district designated as Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District, number IDD-2024-01, Bell Mason, pursuant to Ascension Parish Unified Land Developmental Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of final plat procedure F. I have a motion introduced by Mr. Vornado.
Second.
carries. Okay. And now we'll do the public hearing. So I need to read it again for the public hearing? Okay.
Each one has a public hearing,
Okay.
but they're all different.
All right. 8C, public hearing for introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to create a road infrastructure district, Parish of Ascension Infrastructure District IDD-2024-02, Pelican Point Golf Community, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Developmental Code Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, for approval of final plat procedure. Motion to open public hearing by Mr. Vornado, a second by Mr. PT. Motion to close by Mr. Vornado, a second by Ms. PT. Introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to create a road infrastructure district designated as Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District number IDD-2024-02, Pelican Point Golf Community, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Developmental Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of final plat procedure. Motion introduced by Mr. Robert. All right, 8E, a public hearing for the introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to create a road infrastructure district designated as Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District IDD-2024-03, Delaware State, second filing, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Developmental Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulation 7, Section 17-4011, approval of final plat procedure. Motion to open public hearing by Mr. Robert, second by Mr. PT. Motion to close public hearing by Ms. Alonzo, a second by Mr. Hillensbeck. 8F, introduction of ordinance to amend Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances to create a road infrastructure district designated as Parish of Ascension Road Infrastructure District IDD-2024-03, Delaware State, second filing, pursuant to the Ascension Parish Unified Land Developmental Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4011, approval of final plat procedure. Motion introduced by Mr. Hillensbeck. All right, our public hearing ordinances. 9A, reading of an ordinance to amend the 2024 budget and appropriate the 2025 budget for Ascension Parish government. Mr. Dupatti.
Whereas a revision of certain budgets for the 2024 budget year for certain funds has been prepared and submitted to this council in Exhibit A, whereas the proposed operating budget for the year 2025 includes revenues of $175,546,200 plus required fund balance of $24,994,500 for a total equal to $200,540,700 and expenditures of $165,459,700. The capital budget includes revenues of $39,543,500 plus required fund balance of $41,273,000 for a total equal to $80,816,500 and expenditures of $115,897,500. Therefore, the total operating capital budget revenues plus required fund balance equal $281,357,200 and expenditures equal $281,357,200. Interfund transfers of $98,973,500. Whereas the Ascension Parish Council has reviewed and considered such proposed budget and made revisions of same, and whereas said proposed budget was duly set after proper notice to the public for a public hearing which was held on November 21st, 2024, as required by the revised statutes of the State of Louisiana and Ascension Parish Home Rule Charter, therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Council of the State of Louisiana, Section 2024 amended budget, that amended budgets as prepared for 2024 are approved and appropriated by Ascension Parish Council with the stipulation that A, transfer from the Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 fund to the general fund, the road and bridge fund, and the criminal court fund in the amount necessary to maintain a balanced fund, but will not exceed the amount authorized in the budget. The recreation fund is allocated 10% of the net 1% sales and use tax District Number 1 revenues as an additional source of funding. Funding is also provided by allocation to the Sales and Use Tax Number 1 bond sinking fund, the FINS, Family in Need of Services, to the extent that the resulting revenues of the Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 fund exceed expenditures and transfers, and after an adequate fund balance equal to 6 months of expenditures is maintained, and such excess will be transferred 25% to the Mega Infrastructure Projects Construction Fund, 25% to the Recreation Fund, and 50% to the Move Ascension Fund. The 1/3 net of the Sales and Use Tax District Number 2 revenues collected for fire protection shall be shared by Ascension Parish Fire Protection District Number 1 at 65%, by Ascension Parish Fire Protection District Number 2 at 13%, and by Ascension Parish Fire District Number 3 at 22%. All unexpended appropriations will lapse at December 31st, 2024. Section 2, 2025 budget, that the budget proposed for year 2025 is approved, adopted, and appropriated with the following provisions. A, expenditures not contemplated in the operation of the government of Ascension Parish as set forth in this budget are to be approved in accordance with the provisions of Article 7, Section 701 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish. B, transfer from Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 Fund to General Fund, the Road and Bridge Fund, and the Criminal Court Fund, an amount necessary to maintain a balanced fund, but will not exceed the amount authorized in the budget. The Recreation Fund is allocated 10% of the net 1% Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 revenues as an additional source of funding. Funding is also provided by an allocation to Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 Sinking Fund and FIN's Family Need of Service to the extent that the resulting revenues of the Sales and Use Tax District Number 1 Fund exceed expenditures and transfers, and after an adequate fund balance equal to 6 months of expenditures is maintained, then such excess will be transferred to 25% to the mega infrastructure projects, construction fund, 25% to the recreation fund, and 50% to the Move Ascension Fund. C, the 1/3 net of the Sales and Use Tax District Number 2 revenues collected for fire protection shall be shared by Ascension Parish Fire District Protection District Number 1 at 65%, by Ascension Parish Fire Protection District Number 2 at 13%, and by Ascension Parish Fire Protection District Number 3 at 22%. Funding to provide for the 2024 encumbrances is hereby approved and appropriated. All unexpended appropriations will lapse at December 31st, 2025. This ordinance has been submitted to vote. The vote therein is as follows.
Motion to open public hearing by Mr. Robert, second by Mr. Vornado. Motion to close public hearing by Mr. Vornado, second by Ms. Alonzo. Yeah, Mr. PT?
Yeah, I'd like to propose an additional amendment to the 2024 amended budget under Special Revenue Funds, Council on Aging Fund, under expenditures and other financing usage, appropriations and grants increased by $132,500 for additional ad valorem tax revenues that were received after the Council on Aging's appropriation, which was processed in April 2024.
All right, we have an amendment by Ms. PT. Can I get a second? Second. I have a second by Mr. Cullen. I'm just gonna put on the amendment first. Is there any objection to the amendment? Hearing none, so moved. So now Chair will take questions and motions on the budget as amended. And Mr. Vornado.
I just got a couple of random questions from some line items. For the general fund budget, revenue fund, in 2024 amended budget, it's $60,500, and the projected is $202,500. I'm just curious what that increase would be for.
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
Page 31, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So page 31, and which line item, I'm sorry?
So the civil defense, EMA,
Okay, so that is grants for OEP, and some of the money will not come in at the end of this year, depends on how we spend it. Those grants typically run over a 2 or 3 year period, and then we collect the money once we have spent it, so that we anticipate spending and collecting the rest of it in 2025. But these are grants we get every year, they just last over 2 or 3 years.
gotcha. You can, I'm gonna ask some more in a minute.
All right, Mr. PT?
On page 26, under personnel summary, under mental health, looks like we lost an employee and a half, and we've been reducing over time. Are we, and that's a question I have, are we contracting some of that out to Lady of the Lake, is that correct? Or is that why we have less personnel in there?
Yes.
Okay, that answers that question. That's all I had. One trend I was worried about was the mental health stuff, so,
Yes.
thank you.
If you don't mind, Ms. Dawn, I'll piggyback on that. Just whenever we did the CEA last year with the lake, so every single Ascension Parish employee, transferred under the direction of the lake, and if I'm not mistaken, as we lose those employees, we're letting the lake restaff under their own umbrella, correct?
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Mr. Hillensback.
Yeah, what is the projected cost of living increase for the 3 positions created for the Chief of Staff, Deputy CAO, and Director of Governmental Affairs?
2.5%.
Good. All right, Mr. Varnado?
All right, page 36, the top item, the salary exempt, for the judicial coroner. Can you give us an explanation on the 65,000 additional? Is that a new position?
Yes,
Correct.
it is a new position. Let me get the exact title for you that the coroner is asking for. He currently has, I think it's, hang on, I'm sorry, real quick. He currently has one person who is helping him do this, and he said due to the increase, unfortunately, in items that we're having for deaths and having to investigate them, he needs this additional position. I just want to give you the exact title of it.
Is that amount, it seems to be on the lower end, I guess, for that title? Wouldn't
It
you
is, I think it's called
guess?
the chief hang on, sorry, not
Huh?
a coroner specialist. Chief,
Oh, it's gotta be
chief
full-time. They
death
gonna stay busy.
investigator is what it is.
Gotcha, okay, good deal. I got some more little small questions, if somebody else clicks in. Kick me off for a second.
It's all you, bro.
Next page, page 39, let's see. Yes, nah. There's an increase for non-exempt hourly employees. We're expecting, I guess, an influx of general admin. I mean, there's a $20,000 increase there from 24 amended budget to 25 for non-exempt, which is hourly employees.
Correct, so, if Megan was to explain this a little bit more, there is a federal labor law change that is going to affect how we, document people that are exempt versus non-exempt.
Yeah, we received a ruling. They actually haven't changed it in years, but decided to change it in July. And then again, the 1st of 2025, to where they raised the amount from 35,000 over that 6-month period to over 58,000 for the minimum for a salaried employee. So we had to go back in, look at all of our employees that fell in that range where if the beginning salary was not 58,688, I believe was the exact amount, if they didn't fall there, we had to reclassify them as non-exempt.
And this affects them getting paid overtime, does it not?
It does.
If they get paid overtime or not, right?
Yes.
Yes,
it does.
that's
Okay.
accurate.
Okay. And the salaried employees in that situation would have to be,
Straight time,
but it would
still.
have to be like a special approval or something?
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right, moving right along. I noticed in some of the different funds also that in the travel and training section, let's just say page 40, there's a $18,000 increase, and I think I've spoke to Clint about some training in certain areas I think that the parish employees need. Specifically, I would just throw one out there, the permit office. I get a lot of complaints on that. You know, when folks come in, they build maybe a house in their lifetime, maybe two. And, you know, they're told, you know, a couple of different things, talking to different people just in that department. Is that something that we're expecting, trying to expand upon, you know, with the training and whatnot in the budget for some, you know, different things like that?
I mean, there's always the opportunity to, training for specific things. Sometimes it's accidents or incidents that require, notifies that, you know, certain training needs to happen. The permit department, spoken with Ricky Compton. I don't know if I see him.
He gone,
here.
he gone.
He's smart enough to leave.
He gone.
We've been trying to do a lot of training and clarification, you know, because we spoke about it a lot.
Yeah.
Hopefully in 2025, once we get a lot of development codes straight, and maybe hopefully that clears a lot of that up. That's one of the initiatives. We're certainly aware of the complaints, so it is one of our top areas of complaints. and we have been working on it, and he has been working on it for a long time now. We have just not achieved the degree of customer service and clarification, making things extremely simple, extremely straightforward, easy to find. Permit department is complicated, and it's not easy, certainly when people don't do a lot of homes. So making it as simple as possible with still covering everything is just, it's been a very difficult task for us. We're not gonna stop until we get there. Hopefully in 2025, we gain some better ground in getting that, and hopefully as we look at development code and reviews, that's part of it.
I certainly don't envy y'all, that's for sure, in some areas. The amended budget on page 46, let's see, finance, there's in a couple of areas, there's transportation mileage, 8,500 is kind of a general number I think y'all are proposing. That's just, is that vehicle allowances, is that, just curious. Say page 46, you know, you got 0 for amended budget on 2024, and then it jumps to 8,500. I would expect that to be something yearly or something, if that's an allowance or something for positions. We go from 0 to that, I'm just curious.
Ruth, this is, it's this.
So we've been working with a lot of our staff, and we have several staff that have to have take-home vehicles due to the nature of their job. There are also other employees that we feel are on the same level, director levels and up, that should have that ability. And as opposed to the parish acquiring more vehicles, this allows us to give them a stipend every month to pay for those costs. And we brought it to President Quitmall. He was in favor of it if we could put it in the 2025 budget so that it would come before all of you. But we do already have a policy and procedure for how you get the allowance, and everyone.
Got it, I was just, again, I don't, there's no major issue or nothing, I was just curious, you know, some of the categories go from 0 to, and it jumps, so that kind of sticks out. That's the first things that kind of jump out.
So, yeah, the amount we chose to go with is what the judges get for their car allowances. That's where we got.
Gotcha.
We got the number. So, we looked at what other agencies were doing in their allowances, and we came up with those figures. Some people just don't like to have parish vehicles, so they spend a lot of time in their personal vehicles, for which at those positions are usually, they have a right to get one or take one, but they don't get compensated. So they put mileage on their own vehicle to go to meetings and across parishes in different places. So this is a way, just like the other agencies, judicial and everywhere else, to compensate them for vehicles instead of them and us having to buy vehicles and take the liability risk and insurance and everything else that comes with monitoring fleet.
All right, moving right along. Next page, salary non-exempt, your hourly employees for HR. Goes from 49 to 194. Is that because we're moving the classification, what we just spoke about? That's kind of where we're seeing those numbers, right?
Yes, that is correct. We had 2 employees that got transitioned to non-exempt as well.
Gotcha, okay. Just asking some stupid questions, that's all. Same thing with mileage. The data analytics on page 48, those basically go from nothing in all salary categories, non-exempt and exempt, from 0 to, you know, almost $800,000 in that department. Is that dealing with the pumping stations, some kind of projections dealing with these, with the technology with that? Is that, just curious?
Sure, so including this year, data analytics has continually been growing. It started out as Brian. Party of one, and now we have 6 or 7 employees in there, and they were originally under finance. And so we're simply creating their own department.
Okay.
So that includes GIS, includes our servitude analysis, that includes our SCADA, that includes everything that we use on the technology side. We're just getting more technical with SCADA and GIS and other things so that we can have all our servitudes on the GIS system. So, you know, that department has grown tremendously and will probably continue to grow as we get into AI and some other technical things to help assist us to be more proficient and, you know, efficient.
Gotcha. or two more, I apologize here. And I will hush up.
And while he's looking at those, and keep looking, so if some of the older councilmen remember when we did the move of clearing up the classifications with drainage and the paying 50% over here, 50%. So a lot of that is clearing up categories and charging full salaries to those people in those departments instead of doing 50/50s and 30/30s, even though that still exists in some areas because some people do have dual roles. That's some of the times you'll see those change items and why they're changing. But just put them in the right departments and fully paying them out of those departments instead of splitting funds. And so a lot of times that's happens, and you can see it throughout there. Does it still exist? Yes, because some people have multiple roles in different departments. But overall, it's a lot of clarification and cleaning up, just charging them people just like the GIS. That might have been in finance. Now we're cleaning it up and putting them in their own department and charging that department specifically so we can see what that cost is coming directly out of the department. So it's a lot of cleanup there, and that's why you see a shift from zeros to numbers, is because we're cleaning those up per department and stopping to split those funds like that.
Yeah, at one point, I want to say we had dozens of employees that were getting paid for multiple,
Hundreds.
hundreds, yeah.
Hundreds.
Yeah, I know it was a lot.
All right, a couple more. Page 62. Contract labor goes from 125 to 2.4 million. Is there, is that something to do, I guess, with roads and bridges? I mean, move Ascension or something? It's
It's
over
red dirt.
like $2.2 million increase. Is there?
So that's the Red Dirt Initiative. I have to go explain that one. Now, as we're getting a little bit ahead of action items that are working in the background. That has to do with the Red Mud Lakes. And it's going to have to require a full presentation.
And we are projecting to buy, from what I've seen somewhere, buying some more equipment or something to deal with this
It's a $5
problem.
million project, but we plan on being reimbursed.
Yeah,
So all of that should be reimbursable. That's the key there, and reimbursed by DEQ. But that's going to require a full presentation, a lot of moving parts there. Yes, and of course, that will come to y'all for approval. Once they make the presentation, that will be an approval item for y'all to have to approve. But we need it in the budget in order to do it. But it will
Yeah.
come for your approval.
Gotcha. Yeah, you got a lot of certain amount. Gotcha.
I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. PT for a
Go
minute.
ahead.
Go ahead, Ms. PT.
Mr. President, mine's more of a forecasting question, page 178, my drainage fund over here, the regional detention land acquisitions. Those $2 million figures, is that something that we believe will have to be increased over those yearly terms based on rates and what we really need, real estate prices, whatever? Good guesses, or kind of based on something that we've got some projects on or some ideas on where we want to go?
So, we've spent about probably 2.5 on detention. This is for pumping stations, future sites, future servitudes. We're now getting into the projects that we have been studying with HNTB and the 30 projects. Now we're having to go put money to these projects. That's designing them, getting them shovel-ready. That is acquiring the properties to do the projects. Yes, we'll be constantly acquiring property. All that has to come before y'all. So we have it in the budget just so when those opportunities persist, we're able to go ahead and jump on and bring those to y'all for y'all's approval. So, yep, all those projects are happening. We're gonna spend some serious money, but that's what the money's for, right? And so those projects are coming to fruition. So we're gonna be spending a lot of money on design, a lot of money on acquisition, a lot of money on right-of-ways and servitudes. This is where we start to initiate what we spent $2 to $3 million for H&TB to do. And it's just to do the plan. Now we're about to spend money to build the plan, so build these items, so build the infrastructure. So we got over $200 million in projects. So we're gonna be spending a lot of money over the next decade.
Thank you, sir.
And that $2 million figure, if we ever get to a point to where we exceed that in a year, we'll always come back for a budget amendment if need be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all these property acquisitions have to come to y'all because they have to do it by ordinance. just for example, the 80 acres off Lewis White, that's gonna be around the Dutchtown area and Geismar. That was 1.6, just that one piece, that's 80 acres. We have the rights to the remaining portion of that, which is more than 80 acres. So having this in the budget and prepared, because the most difficult thing that we've found is these appraisals have to hit just right before these sellers will sell. Sometimes they do, sometimes we get lucky. We get a lot of times we get turned down. We do a lot of appraisals and they say, that's just not enough money. We're not gonna separate our family property for that. So it's a hit or miss, but we have to be ready. We have to have it in the budget. So the ones that do come around, they're willing to sell, we can take advantage of it. And then, of course, nobody likes the dirty word of expropriation, but on certain projects, we have to expropriate where the public need is greater than that of the private individual. Well, that'll have to come before y'all as well, and we'll need that in the budget to do that as well.
Ms. PT?
Yeah, no, I was just trying to get more money for drainage, that's all I was doing. Sorry.
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Bornaduke?
I guess this question would be for Ms. Dawn. Page 72, Sales and Use Tax, District 2. There's an increase from the adopted budget to amended and now to the projected. Is that just because we're getting more gains on our money? Is that what that is?
Sorry, let me get to the page. So it's interest income you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes. So the
We
interest
just
rates
invested
have,
better or something?
I'm sorry?
We just invested in something
Yeah, I
different or
invested
just?
great, yeah. Made you rich. No, we are getting a lot more money. The interest rates have been running around 4%. They're dropping a tiny little bit now to about 3.3. And we ladder our investments every year, so we go out anywhere from 2 to 3, and it's all very, very conservative. So we don't invest in anything that we legally cannot for governments. But yes, the rates have been much better. Therefore, we're making more
We
money.
anticipate that to decrease probably with
Yes.
the new stuff coming online, those percentages probably, I would say, in '26?
I will tell you that I just reinvested the parish just reinvested some money out to 2027 and 2028, and the rates were still almost 3.8%.
They're falling.
I mean, that's much better. Look, there was 2 or 3 years where we were at 0.01, so we're doing really well,
Yeah, absolutely.
comparatively speaking.
Absolutely, good to see. Page 86, mental health. What, do we have a plan for the grand total we've got in the bottom here? Where I see we're gaining about $1 million a year. It's up to projected to be 13.3 million next year. Do we have some kind of, I think long-term, do we have any kind of goals with that money? We're subbing out a lot of this third party into the Lady to Lake. Is this money's just sitting here? Do we have something in mind? Are we talking about doing something with this money potentially?
So, as most of you know, our juvenile tax goes to the early childhood education, okay? And that's for health initiatives for babies from the time they're born to the time they're 3. Proper nutrition, proper exposure, all the things that these kids get through that program. If that juvenile detention fund gets pulled, this is the gap that fills it. Yes. And so we don't want to go ahead and isolate that money because they are talking to the sheriff and having those discussions with him. They're going to have a juvenile detention center somewhere, and we're going to have to pay part of that because we pay for the jails. That's our babies. And so this will be no different. So we have to be prepared for that to be taken from early childhood education. And because it's a health initiative with babies, we believe it fits the parameter. So that's just in case money.
So how far down the road are they projecting some kind of jail?
I mean,
or detention center, I'm sorry.
I mean, this is one of Governor Landry's initiatives is crime, and it's not, so they're trying to figure out, as you know, juvenile detention centers are very, 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 very expensive to run due to the regulations. It's the reason why we don't have one. It's because we can't afford to have one by ourselves. And so it requires multi-parish facilities that everybody uses, and then we fund. Sometimes parishes have to force sending juveniles to Mississippi, just because the Louisianas are booked or full, and we just don't have enough of them. So the sheriff at Ascension is working with other parishes locally to maybe get a 3 to 5 parish group together in order to fund the facility. But they're working through the state to do that, and with grants and so on and so forth. So It is a process. I can't tell you when that's gonna happen or not, but
Would
we
we
are
have to-
having to have discussions that funding, we don't know how much will be pulled from early childhood education to fund that juvenile detention center.
Would we have to reappropriate these funds somehow, some way, or can we just translate that to that? Would we have to change anything to be able to spend these funds in that area, or is that encompassed in that, to be able to spend this on that? Would we have to change anything, legally speaking?
I mean, obviously, we gotta get some legal opinions and make sure that it fits the criteria, which we believe it does, but we'll have to do that to ensure that we're legally putting the money in the right place. But, yeah. But any kind of amendments, so, that'll come before y'all.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
I know leading up to the election, there was that number was been thrown around, so I was just curious. Anybody else got any questions? Am I the only guy here? Goodness. So did I. Absolutely. Huh? I think that's it. The only other one is the projected five-year plan on whatever page it's on here. Some of the line items on the new pumping station and whatnot, which we just initiated and whatnot, I don't know what page, whatever page it's on.
178.
178. All right, thank you. 178. My bad. So some of the monies that we're showing that the parish would be on the hook for, some of that is obviously, I think we discussed, is it match money and whatnot for the, where's it at? The new pumping station and whatnot.
Talking about the New River pump
New
station
River,
to the
New River
Mississippi
stormwater
River?
pump station, that 19.2 million projected in 2026, I mean, is that, do we have any kind of potential grants potentially, or is that just, y'all just throwing that out there?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In
So we're
case.
getting $40 million with no match, okay, which is extremely unusual. With that 40, we have to show that we can dedicate the remaining funds to start the project. OCD requires to show that we have cash on hand. We will be going after every possible grant to reduce that number. We're already in the process and get the application getting ready for March of 2025 for part of that money. And so we're taking advantage that our brick grant for phase 2 went in October. Well, actually, the NOFO got moved back to November. So we're getting that one ready to go in this month for the phase 2 part of that project. All the time, every time, we always try to leverage our funds with state and federal funds. Federal money is slow money, but on projects of this size, it's critical to go after the federal money because they're the bigger pot. It's just the smaller projects are more difficult, so we usually go for state funding with those. And that's whether it's capital outlay, whether that's DOTD state-wide floodplain money, or different CPRA, Go Mesa, whatever be the case, we'll go with the smaller projects. That's the Hendersons, that's the ones that got approved with Henderson, and the others. So the mini pump stations, for example, we're trying not to use our money or complete money. So let's say it's $3 to $4 million project. We're going to try to get 75% of that funding for those projects and build those projects with 25% of our money. But we have to have them shovel ready. So that means we have to start the designs, we got to acquire the property so that when we get those opportunities and we get those money, we're ready to start immediately. So, but on that particular one, that's a transformative project. The other one is the Sorrento Surge Protection Project. It's the two biggest projects we have. The New River Pump Station one is over $100 million complete, meaning it's fully completed, fully done, fully operational, it's $100 million. The Sorrento Surge Protection is about 70 to 80 million. These are long-term, decade-long projects. They take extremely long time to do. But in order for us to get started with phase one, we have to show that we have that 19 million in cash. But we will be going after every possible grant in order to trim that amount down to, yeah, I would love to trim it down to $1 if we could. So, yes, absolutely. But it is required to start the project.
And do we have it's kind of shifting gears a little bit, do we, for state, you know, they're changing the tax code and whatnot, so I'm just curious, from what I'm hearing, we may have like possibly a $20 to $40 million deficit coming down the street, I think Jeff Landry's pushing to not give us the option to opt in, from what I've heard. Is
Nope.
what are y'all hearing on that? Because that's a massive amount of money that we would be on the hook to be looking, you know, to make up potentially.
We've been working very closely through our Picard group and our lobbyists to ensure, as well as phone calls to our representatives and to our senators. They know our concerns along the river region. As far as I know today, that opt-in and opt-out is in place. I made it clear when I talked to the governor myself that anything to be replaced was dollar for dollar. You know, it's clear that corporations have to pay their fair share. Never should we give corporate breaks and put it on the back of every one of our constituents with ad valorem increase in property taxes. So you either have to show me a planned dollar for dollar replacement, or we're gonna still have the inventory tax, which we plan to do.
Do y'all
We've been
think
clear
that's going to affect our viability for some of these projects?
Oh, we can't give it up. It's built in. It's at minimum 42 million for us annually. It's at a maximum of 72 million. That's the two different figures in the range that I've gotten for inventory, because it's very complicated from what the tax credit is that we receive from the state, which is about 42 million, from then all the other businesses that don't get the tax credit but pay the inventory as the remaining part. And that's the school board, that's the sheriff's department, and that's the Ascension Parish government. So absolutely across the board, other parishes, I will tell you, will not make it if they don't get the inventory. They will, 25% of their budget will just disappear. And the one-time money is not enough to cover that, because once that one-time money's done, then they got a budget shortfall and they got to start laying off people. I just don't see that happening. The machinery and equipment's already been taken off the table. The opt-in and opt-out is still going. It's being negotiated through the House. That's already passed through the Senate. I don't see that changing this legislative session. Maybe in the future, if they come up with a different plan, showing us dollar for dollar that you're going to replace this. But as of today, it's opt-in, opt-out is what I'm being told as of today, this morning.
The tax credits for the industry, is that something I'm also hearing that they're talking about phasing that out? And that's what I'm talking about.
It's going to be phased out, but.
Would that affect our viability for, say, the development in Donaldsonville or anything, the viability of some of them projects?
No. So how they're offsetting that is to do away with the corporate franchise tax, which is $400 million. The credit's only $284. So just getting rid of the corporate franchise makes corporations moving here even more attractive, because obviously $400 million, the way it worked, it's kind of a shell game. So they pay the corporate franchise tax. So because they do that, they give the tax credit for the inventory. Well, now they're not going to pay the corporate franchise tax. So that's worth $400 million or plus. I've heard 540 in another study. So it's hard to tell because I can't ever get consistent numbers, but I've seen both. So it's in that range, 400 to 540. So from what I understand, what's been consistent is the inventory tax credit's been 284. As of this morning, I'm being told that that's being phased out, that it's not just going to be cut off, which was what the plan was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so phasing that out. But again, I don't, other than the corporate franchise fee tax being eliminated, the opt-in, opt-out, the MM&E is still off the table, that's gone. I guess the big question becomes whether they're gonna raise the sales tax from 4% to 5%, like the governor wants. You read that in the paper, that's no new news in the paper. That allows the income tax to go to a flat 3%. You gotta replace it somewhere, and services exemptions are not enough to close the gap for the budget shortfall, so you have to put it on the sales tax side. So that's kind of where all that's at, but as of today, we don't take a hit on revenue. We're gonna keep it the same. Only thing that's gonna be more attractive for the state because they're not gonna have the corporate franchise tax, which is
Gotcha.
worth 400 to 540 million.
That's all my questions. I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Motion to adopt the ordinance as amended? Second.
All right, I have a motion to adopt ordinance as amended by Ms. Peattie, a second by Mr. Vornado. Any objections? Hearing none, so moved. Before we move to item 9D, I would love for everybody to check out my colleague over here to my right, Mr. Travis Turner. He showed up a little late, and boy, did he think he was gonna escape, but, Mr. Turner, go ahead and stand up for us, please, if you don't mind.
Give us a little spin.
Huh? No, oh, no, if you don't stand up, I'm gonna call a recess, so either way, there we go. Just pick that camera up, there we go. Hey. Look at that.
That might make him coach better.
That's it, I've never found him more attractive, look at him.
Well, we did beat Santa Mar Middle tonight, though.
Huh?
We did beat Santa
You
Mar
beat
Middle
San Juan
tonight.
Middle?
Yes.
Hey, let me know whenever they beat San Juan. And just a reminder, this is Mr. Turner's fourth time wearing that jersey in the last 5 years. So, hey, he had the audacity to complain that it was a little snug. 2 years ago, he bought me a sporting jersey from Baby Gap. I was sweating. I had to go take it off. I was about to pass out.
You might as well just keep that jersey.
Yeah. All right, moving on along. 9D, reading of an ordinance to amend the ordinance adopted on January 18, 2024, amending section 16-1 of the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on June 20th, 1996, adopting a pay classification plan to adjust pay ranges to allow a three-tiered approach based on labor grade for a 2025 cost of living effective December 23rd, 2024. Mr. Dupatti.
Purpose, to amend an ordinance adopted on January 18, 2024, amending section 16-1 of the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances adopted by Ascension Parish Council on June 20, 1996, adopting a pay classification plan to adjust pay ranges to allow for a three-tiered approach based on labor grade for 2025 cost of living adjustments effective December 23rd, 2024. Whereas the Parish of Ascension, through the Ascension Parish Council under lawful session, passed an ordinance adopting an official pay classification plan, and whereas the original ordinance established a uniform system for reimbursing, promoting, and classifying Ascension Parish personnel, and whereas the plan was last amended on January 18th, 2024, and is in need of further revision, and whereas the Human Resources Director has prepared a revision to the pay classification plan, and whereas the parish president has accepted the revised plan and proposed a revision to the parish council for review, now therefore be it ordained that the Ascension Parish Council does hereby authorize the amendment of the pay classification plan attached as Exhibit A, proposed by the Human Resources Department and submitted by the parish president of a three-tiered approach based on labor grade for the 2025 COLA of 2.5%, 3%, and 3.5%, effective December 23rd, 2024. Effective date, this ordinance shall be in full effect permitted by law. The ordinance having been submitted to vote, the vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to open public hearing by Mr. Vornado. Second by Mr. Hillinsbeck. Motion to close by Mr. Vornado, is second by Mr. Joseph. Yeah, Ms. Phillips.
Cinnamon, can you clarify the effective date?
This December 23rd, 2024 on here. We just had with the holiday, we couldn't publish until a week later, but it doesn't affect this effective date.
Let's see, all right, I had a motion from Mr. Joseph.
What, for the ordinance itself?
Yeah. For the COLA.
Can she give us a little background on it?
Yeah, Mr. Vornado.
Can you give us a synopsis or some information on this? Because maybe some of us didn't have time to look at this in detail because of some other stuff.
Sure. So we did a three-tiered approach, and that's based on the labor grades so that there is an equal opportunity based on our different salary levels. And so you'll notice that your 118 and above, they are going to receive a 2.5%. You'll notice the labor grades underneath that, I don't know if you have the chart in front of you, would receive a 3%. And then our lower level labor grades will receive a 3.5. We devised that based on the Social Security Administration, which this year was going to be around that 2.5% increase. And so that's why that's why we decided upon that for the higher tiers.
Okay, thank you.
Anytime?
All right, I had a motion by Mr. Joseph, a second by Mr. Vornado. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. At this time, Chair needs a,
Enter an executive session.
and we will need a supermajority. So I have a motion to enter executive session by Mr. Vornado, a second by
Second.
Ms. Alonso. There we go. All right, if everyone would please vote on your keypad.
Did Councilman Robert leave?
Yeah, Mr. Robert left. Mr. Hillensbeck just stepped out. Hit him with the absent. All right, we will enter executive session. As soon as I see my little ugly mug right here.
Back up. Motion to reconvene.
Have a motion to reconvene by Mr. Vornado, a second by Ms. PT. And I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Arsenault and Mr. Vornado, and we are adjourned. Thank you.